I've had a number of community theater chairmen ask how we can be so financially successful. My one advice is have a dinner theater. People really enjoy going someplace where they can have their dinner and their entertainment all together, especially if you're in rural areas such as this. And even in bigger cities, I think it's nice to have everything under one roof. The combination of food and comedy in a nice atmosphere.
For 10 summers now, the Lawrenceburg Community Theater has been drawing capacity crowds for its summer dinner theater performances on the lower level of the restaurant at David Crockett State Park, just outside of Lawrenceburg. With 3 comedy and sometimes comedy mystery shows offered each season, and also an outdoor musical in the park amphitheater, there's a summer entertainment for audiences from a wide area. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 3 weeks of each month, June, July, and September, in the 130-seat dinner theater, and August performances of theater only in the park amphitheater. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope, and here's Florence Moore, chairman of the board of the Lawrenceburg Theater, as we talked about the unusual location of the shows, a restaurant in a state park.
It's highly unusual. To my knowledge, there's not another one anywhere, but it has definitely been to the mutual benefit of both of us.
Well, what about your performers? Where do they come from? And are they professional actors and actresses?
No, they're all amateurs, although after 10 years, some of them are approaching professionalism, it would seem. But they're all just local people. The boy next door, the editor of the local paper, attorneys, bankers, secretaries.
I'm surprised they have that much time because they have to rehearse, too, in addition to being here for performances all the time.
That's right. We rehearse for about 3 to 4 weeks prior to the opening of a show. And if you've ever performed, you know that all it takes is one performance to really be so-called bit. And once you are, you'll make all kinds of sacrifices to be at rehearsals.
Well, it must take an enormous amount of people to put on these productions.
Of necessity, we have become multi-talented and multifaceted and multi-jobbed. Most of the performers handle their own costumes, unless it's a period piece or something that requires the services of a seamstress. We have a prop committee, we have a set committee, and we have a sound and light technician, and sometimes people will function on more than one.
Do these people get paid for this,
No.
performing, or any of the other jobs that are done?
The only paid personnel that we have had in the past is, and still, is the director. We decided at the initiation of this that to have a professional director would make our productions have a polish that they couldn't have with an amateur director.
Does your group perform anywhere else beside here at the David Crockett State Park?
We've had requests to do so, but it would be extraordinarily difficult. We usually have rather elaborate sets, although it's in the round. We have furniture stores here whom you wouldn't believe how generous they are. They open their doors and we can just select whatever we want. And we do a certain amount of construction and are accustomed to the effect of using the lights. And it would be hard for us to take a show somewhere.
But you certainly are not in need of an audience. I understand you have capacity crowds all the time.
Oh, yes, and it's so exciting. I have calls starting in February and March. When is the letter going out? What's the season going to be? And virtually every time I come out to the park, as you saw tonight, someone hands me a list. These people want to be on the mailing list.
Where do these people come from?
Surprisingly enough, only about 25 to 30% of our audience is local. And the remainder come from surrounding counties, as far away as Davidson County, which is 75 miles. And we have a large contingent from North Alabama.
What kind of show draws your biggest crowd?
Well, our audiences love comedies. That's all we ever do. Somehow, dinner theater and comedy seem to go hand in hand.
That was Florence Moore, chairman of the board of the Lawrenceburg Community Theater. For summer dinner theater reservations, call the restaurant at David Crockett State Park. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Johnson & Higgins of Tennessee, insurance brokers, and employee benefit consultants. This is Lin Folk.
The knife comes to me originally as a block of wood and usually a piece of scrap brass and a piece of tool steel that I buy. It's just a flat blank of stock, and you have to cut it off on a bandsaw, and then you grind it down. It has to be polished and heat treated. It's pretty involved. There are several different kinds of knives that I make. The handle on this is made out of what they call sambar stag, which comes from a small deer that runs around over in India. There's all kinds of exotic woods that you can use, but sometimes you can buy it and sometimes you can't buy any given type, basically because the world political situation changes so much that one day we're dealing with a country and the next day they're not allowing anything in or out. It was like that with ebony a few years ago. You couldn't buy it. Now you can get it.
Harold Woodward, knife maker, sword maker, and engraver, who lives and works near Woodbury, Tennessee. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope on a visit to his home and adjoining shop. Although he's confined to a wheelchair, in addition he has an electrically propelled stand-up chair which enables him to continue producing the custom-made pieces that he was making prior to his motorcycle accident of 1983. His catalog contains a variety of bowie knives, combat and hunting knives, and swords, among them his Henry V battle sword.
It was just a commission. I make swords, and that was, I think, the largest one I ever put together because it was 46 inches long altogether and weighed about 2.5 or 3 pounds. But there's a society of creative anachronisms here in the United States which people gather together and they have Renaissance fairs and festivals, and I've been making a lot of swords for those people. They've kept me pretty busy. I'm making one from a man in Adak, Alaska now, who's a member, and another one for a man up here in Nashville.
So they get them from you and they really use them that way. They're not just for display.
Oh, no, they take it and use it as you would in an old joust or something. It's a lot of thing with the SCA that they have is the costumes and the authenticity of dress. The more authentic I get, better it is for me. I want to be as pure as I can and not make a direct copy of whatever it is. I want to keep my lines and everything straight and pretty the way they're supposed to be and make something good.
You must have to do a lot of research then on each item that you make.
Sometimes, yeah, I make them off of a customer's design, and other times I just go through books and magazines and just, you see the books, there's a whole stack of them on nothing but knives and swords and so on and so forth, and it's part of the tools that you have to have, reference materials.
Harold Woodward works just about every day of the week, and he says that his handicap has slowed him down a bit.
I've got my business with the engraving plus the machine shop, and I'm making the knives and swords, so I'm pretty well moving all day long. Everything takes you 3 times longer from a wheelchair. It's a pain. I mean, for 43 years you're not hurt, and then all of a sudden you are, and so then you have to work with it or you work around it. And I've got a philosophy is that you can get used to anything. You don't have to like it, but you can get used to it. Go out to my shop. I've got a machine out there that I am able to get into. It's electric, and I pull myself up to a standing position, and I can run my milling machine and a lathe and do just about everything I could before. And I just wish everybody who's in a chair had one of those things, because it's a motivation to get out and do it. And it also is real good for you physically. Keeps you from getting osteoporosis and bone diseases and things. Lets your body straighten out again and get in an upright position like it's supposed to. But, I look forward to going to work in the morning. I really do. And I get up at 5 o'clock, and by 7 I'm sitting here listening to the radio and working on my engraving. If it's a nice, beautiful day, I'll be out in the shop working in it. And this usually goes about 7 days a week. The most frustrating thing I have is not being able to do something connected with my job, and I have to have someone come over and do it like plug in a wall socket because there's tons of steel on the floor in front of me. It's just aggravating, but you get to live around it.
Harold Woodward, a member of the Knife Makers Guild and a member of the Tennessee Custom Knife Makers Association. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Foundation. This is Lin Folk.
President and Ms. Polk had no children. After President Polk's untimely death, Ms. Polk adopted a niece as her very own daughter. And it is the daughter of this niece that organized the Polk Association. We have some 2,000 pieces that she inherited and started the collection that we have here at the Polk home.
Many art objects, including portraits by Ralph Earl, Washington Cooper, Healy, and George Dury, are on display at the James K. Polk Home and Museum in Columbia, Tennessee. This house was built in 1816 by James K. Polk's parents, and it's the only house still standing where he lived, with the exception of the White House, which he occupied from 1845 to 1849 as the 11th President of the United States. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with Polk Association board member Francis Rainey as we looked at some of the 2,000 items on display, beginning with the President's favorite clocks.
The clocks belong to President and Ms. Polk. The Amalu clocks were at the White House, and it's said that President Polk took great delight in winding the clocks once a week.
In the museum, historical art such as clothing and important postage stamps, political cartoons, photographs, and a print of the original design of the Washington Monument.
President Polk and Dolly Madison laid the cornerstone for Washington Monument. Of course, they ran out of funds, and then the Civil War intervened. So the monument was not finished till 1887, and the design is changed from the original design. But President Polk always had one of these hanging in his office at the White House. The first postage stamp was issued during the Polk administration. This is one of the original stamps. Before then, a postmaster would just write paid on an envelope.
And this postage stamp was issued in 1847.
This is a daguerreotype made of President Polk's cabinet. And William Seal, who is a White House historian, tells us that it is the earliest known photograph made inside the White House. But daguerreotype was new in President Polk's time. And in his diary, he often speaks of he is sitting for Matthew Brady or Plumlee for a daguerreotype likeness. When Mrs. Polk planned to go to the White House after the election, she ordered 5 gowns from Paris. This is one of them. The only other one of the 5 that I know still exists is in the Smithsonian. It was her inaugural gown, which was blue silk, and it had the poinsettia woven into the material. This fan was made especially for President Polk's inauguration. There are 2 still in existence, one here and one at the Smithsonian. It's the one that belonged to Miss Polk and was gold-leafed. It has all the first 11 presidents pictured, including our 11th, James K. Polk. There was not photography as we know it today. Consequently, we have several prints that appeared in newspapers. For instance, the one showing the inauguration in 1845, and you see it's called an assembly of umbrellas because it rained. But instead of having a picture of it, they had to have a sketch of it.
I see a number of cartoons here also.
This was a very hot election, so there were cartoons in all the newspapers. The lithographs that were used as posters for the presidential campaign in 1844 are by Courier. This is before he joined up to be Courier and Ives. They, of course, had the printing press, So we have some silk campaign ribbons that picture James K. Polk and his running mate, George Mifflin Dallas. And also we have one of his opponent, Henry Clay.
Francis Rainey at the James K. Polk home in Columbia, Tennessee, which is open to the public every day with the exception of certain holidays. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Choices Restaurant in Franklin. This is Lin Folk. The pianoforte at the James K. Polk home in Columbia, Tennessee, played by Bruce Prince Joseph. The piano belonged to Sarah Childress Polk before she married James Polk, 11th President of the United States. This Astor and Norwood piano was made in London in 1805, and for years it stayed closed in the parlor of the Polk home, looking more like a desk than a musical instrument. Now it makes music again, sounds which have not been heard for more than a century. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with Bruce Prince Joseph, who gave new life to this delicate instrument, which is so fragile that it must be treated with great care.
You cannot play this like a regular piano, because if you do, you'll break everything. You know, when you think of this beautiful Astor and Norwood made in London around 1805, the key to it is feather. The lighter the touch, the better the sound. And of course, with an antique like this, of course, you always have great problems. It still plays, as you see.
How long has it been since it was played that you know of?
I would imagine it probably has not played well since the middle part of the 19th century, which of course makes it about 130 years. When I first saw it, it was just a pile of junk, parts, strings all over everything, broken strings, broken hammers, broken keys. Everything was missing on it, and just putting all of those original parts back into the correct order was quite a job to do that. And that's, of course, what I take pride in mostly, is because it still has most of its original parts. The only part of it that's really new, probably 2/3 of the strings are new, and that means that there are about 1/3 of the strings that remain are still the original strings dating back to 1805, which is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Who played on this? Do you know, in the first place?
No, it's my understanding that this instrument belonged to Mrs. Polk, and it was hers, and of course, naturally, when she married the president, it went right along with her. It's part of her possessions. And here it is in this beautiful house here. For many years, in the state that it was in, having collected so many hundreds of years of dust, etc., they kept it closed pretty much. They weren't all that anxious to have people see it. So it really looked more like a credenza or a writing desk than anything else. And of course, the minute that you opened the top of this pretty little English forte piano, you realize, of course, that it was a musical instrument. So here it is.
Tell me something about the keyboard. It's not as large a keyboard, is it, as a regular piano that we see now?
This has a very limited. This has a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 octave keyboard, which of course is a very restricted keyboard. This has the same size keyboard as you would have found in a harpsichord at that time, or in a harpsichord today that's being made. They also have restricted keyboards. You cannot play Liszt on this and big music because it just won't take it. Your hammers are so tiny they're about the size of a dime, as opposed to the hammers on a concert grand piano today, which are about the size of an old silver dollar, you see. So there's a great difference in the size, the striking area, etc. And as I said, all the original hammers are here, see, so they're in very delicate condition.
What kind of music did they play? They couldn't play Liszt and they couldn't play all of these others. What kind of music did they play on?
It was conceived for music of Haydn, Mozart, and Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, and all of the music that went before that. could be played on this instrument, but nothing that demands any great sonority. It's all what I called tiny linear music, you see, or tiny chordal music. There's no possibility for bombast on instruments like this.
Bruce Prince Joseph, who rehabilitated the pianoforte at the James K. Polk home in Columbia. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lin Folk.
Often in dealing with adolescents, a good way to get them to really open up to their problems is to bring in music with very provocative lyrics. So music that they've heard before that would describe an issue that they're working on, maybe a rebellion issue. The actual music and the lyrics will help to spark them to be able to express their thoughts.
Music therapist Lisa Summer, director of the music therapy program at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, which is the only university in the state offering training in this field. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope. When I talked with Lisa Summer about the music used in therapy sessions, I was curious to know if clients just listen to the music or if they actually create the music themselves.
What a music therapist would do is to bring in very simple instruments, usually percussive instruments, something like a xylophone, and would encourage improvisation. If I brought in a xylophone and a drum, and the client would choose the xylophone, we would make music together, and we would just make up whatever came. And the therapist would support the client. If the client started to play in a rhythm like that, then I would echo that on my drum. Symbolically, I'm supporting who they are in the world on a musical level. And with this comes a real sense of togetherness in the music and a real sense of growth. Usually when you improvise, the therapy lies in the experience of producing the music. And then sometimes you talk about it afterwards and talk about what went on and how it felt. I might bring in some classical music and suggest that they close their eyes. And they let the music bring up some memory. All sorts of different types of experiences come up. And then they would share those with the group. The music comes in and it's used to stimulate whatever is inside of this person. And it might be conflicts. Sometimes conflicts come up, and sometimes they're very positive things that come up, really good memories that a person hasn't thought of for a long time. And then they can really use those to help themselves and to make themselves feel better.
Going back to the provocative lyrics that you mentioned, are these special lyrics that you have written or somebody's written, or are they just the general run of music that we hear, or provocative lyrics that we hear anywhere?
Well, we can write our own lyrics, or we can bring in those written by another. By provocative, I mean, first of all, that it would stimulate thought, that it would stimulate feeling, that it wouldn't necessarily be the opinion of the whole or the opinion of our society. In much of our music, there is a rebelliousness and there's a fight against society. And so it's very easy to go to music to find lyrics that symbolize rebellion. For example, you can find lyrics that say that greed is good. And to bring this into a group who's dealing with the issue of greed, to bring in this piece of music that says that greed is fine will promote really a reaction from them and help them to really begin to think out different aspects and to be able to make decisions for themselves. You know, is what the music is saying is true? What does it evoke in you when you hear the music say this? Does it make you angry? Do you feel in tune with it?
It just tears down their defenses, doesn't it?
I don't know that it tears down their defenses, but it reaches parts of them that aren't normally stimulated to be reached. and it's not this way in every case, but usually the lyrics of a song would represent the thoughts of the composer, and the music would represent the emotions. And so as a therapist, you take in both of those together, and you work on how the person responds to the thoughts of the song and to the emotional content of the song, too.
In the next Tennessee Kaleidoscope program, the use of music therapy during pregnancy will be discussed by Lisa Summer. This program made possible by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Foundation. This is Lin Folk.
It expresses different areas of us, and different people are attracted to different types of music. And as a child, it's nice to give them an exposure to a wide variety so that they can choose. I think it's most harmful when a child is only exposed to one type of music. It's almost like they learn one language and then they're hesitant to go outside that. And it's been found that as children get older, there is a lot of peer pressure and that their choice is really narrow. So it's really nice to get them when they're very young and really expose them to a wide variety.
Exposing children to various types of music can begin long before the child is born, according to Lisa Summer, director of the music therapy program at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, which is the only university in the state offering training in music therapy. This is Lin Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope as I talked with Lisa Summer when the Southeastern Conference of the National Association for Music Therapy met in Nashville recently. One of the topics for discussion at the conference was the use of music as a relaxation technique in stages of pregnancy and childbirth.
There has been a lot of interest in the music the child experiences in the womb. And if we put headphones on a pregnant woman's belly, can the child experience the music? This is a lot of fun. You know, it's really an area that we don't know much about. And when I was pregnant, I did just that. Every morning when I woke up, I would do a little bit of meditation for relaxation, and I would put some music on, and I would listen to the music, and my baby would listen to the music. And I don't know how much she heard or what her experience of it was, but I felt some connection, you know, with that. And that's very important in pregnancy. And then going into the pregnancy, I began to choose pieces that I would like to take in with me.
You mean the birth part of it?
The birth
yeah,
part,
yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
My work in music therapy has been a lot associated with relaxation and using techniques of music and relaxation together. And so when working with something like the Lamaze method or the Bradley method, that fit in just perfectly, just absolutely wonderfully with that. And I began to choose music for the different stages of labor. The music I found for myself really carried me very much through the birth and was very, very much a part of it. And then afterwards, I really used it to relax a lot. There were times when Eve didn't want to sleep and I wanted to sleep, and I would try to put music on for her or for myself just for relaxing.
What you did with the earphones on your stomach, if you didn't do that, if you just had music playing, would that still have some effect on the child, do you think? Of course, it would have an effect on you and affect your relaxation and so forth, but is it absolutely necessary to use the earphones?
The music would really have an impact on me, and that would be more of the effect. I think as far as vibration goes, that probably, I'm not sure, you know, I can't say, but I could guess that the baby would be more affected by the immediate sounds, the loudest sounds, the most intense sounds that are coming through. And so if the speakers were pretty far away, that would not be heard directly, but it would be filtered through my psyche.
For young children, the kinds of music that they're exposed to, what kind of an effect does this have on them?
Music can be used in very persuasive ways. When music is on in the background, often we're not aware of it. If the child is not focusing on it, that's going to go into his psyche anyway. And because it's auditory, we can't really close our ears. We can close our eyes to some stimulus, but we can't really close our ears very much. So the child does not have real defenses against what's coming in on an auditory level.
Lisa Summer, director of Tennessee Tech's Music Therapy Program. She was one of the speakers at the Southeastern Conference of the National Music Therapy Association. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lin Folk.
We have people from all over the world visit South Guthrie. We had a group called Partners of America, and they visited here for one whole morning, and we had a side presentation, and we met them and they met us, and we just enjoyed that morning. They wanted to see South Guthrie. That was part of their tour of Tennessee. And they were business people, homemakers, teachers. They wanted to know how we succeeded to get this far on the things that we've done.
Clyde Kilgore, president of the South Guthrie Improvement Association. South Guthrie, a predominantly black community with a population of 380, is located 15 miles from Clarksville, near the Tennessee-Kentucky border. And often groups of tourists visit here to get ideas for improving their communities. This is Lin Folk with Tennessee Kaleidoscope, focusing on this little town, which has 4 churches, 2 barbershops, 1 grocery store, a public library, community center, and about 70 houses. Most of them have been remodeled. In the early 1970s, South Guthrie was rapidly deteriorating. But the Improvement Association was formed, and the citizens, through their own efforts, transformed the community, making it a pleasant place to live. They did such a good job that South Guthrie was chosen to be one of the 25 United States communities represented at an international rural planning conference in New Delhi, India. Clyde Kilgore was there and served as spokesman for his hometown at this event.
There were some 600 people at the conference in New Delhi. We shared ideas, and this information was to be put in a computer where if any community wanted to know what each one of those communities did, they could touch base through a computer.
How long did the conference last?
The conference lasted 17 days. It was a worldwide conference, and I, learned much there.
That's a long time. What did you do during all those 17 days?
We worked. There was no days off. And it was really educational for me. I've seen a lot of things in New Delhi that I shared with the people back at home, especially the hunger and the crowdedness of New Delhi. A population, so big a population in New Delhi, it just made me realize that, we have everything here in America. We just don't appreciate a lot of things that we really do have. In New Delhi, it's nothing wasted. It's just so many people that have to use everything they have.
And when you came back, I'm sure you made a number of presentations about what you did and where you went. Do you give lectures about it?
Mm-hmm. We brought some slides back on New Delhi, India, and all the workshops and the things that we did and the experiences we had. Now we usually carry this slide presentation around and explain to other groups about our visit and what it meant for us and what we did, and show the pictures. We also have another slide presentation, which is a South Guthrie slide presentation, and I take the slides from time to time and go all over and explain to people and show them through the slides of what can happen for your community if you just want it to happen. It shows the beginning and the end. It's more or less a before and after. It shows the broken down homes before they were remodeled. It shows a rundown streets. It shows a litter on the side of the roads. And it shows everything. Then the slide shows the new homes, the improved streets, the street lights, the street signs, the public library. It shows the cleaning up and the trash containers. And from this, I explain to groups what you can do if you just come together as an organization and decide what's best for the community. I've been to Knoxville, I've been Chattanooga. I've been Martin, Tennessee. I've been to Gallatin. I've been to Memphis. I've been over a lot of different places showing the slides. And I do this at my own expense. I want to share with others, show that good things can come for you if you yourself get up and try to make things better.
Clyde Kilgore, president of the South Guthrie Community Improvement Association. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lin Folk.